In this section, we're going to look at some angle basic vocabulary. So a lot of this may be review, some of it may be new, but we're just going to start out with what an angle is. Okay, so an angle here is a figure formed with two rays, okay, and those rays are called coterminal, meaning they share the same endpoint. All right, that coterminal point is actually called the vertex. So B here is the vertex of this angle, and then BA and BC are rays, and sometimes you call them legs, sometimes you call them side. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's what an angle is. To name an angle, there's four different ways in this case here down at the bottom. Okay, the first way is you use all 3 points. But what's key in using all 3 points is that vertex has to be the middle letter or point listed. Okay, so I could name it MPZ, or I could reverse it and do ZPM. So it doesn't matter which ray you name first, but that vertex has to be listed in the center. I could also name it angle P just by its vertex, and there's an exception to that. We'll talk about that in a second. And sometimes they put numbers on the inside of the angle, and we could just name it angle 3. Now, let me show you an example of where we could not just name it angle P. If I had something like this, okay, and this was called angle P, if I said find the measure of angle P, you should say, well, which one? Because I actually see an angle here at P, and here. Okay, so when there's more than one angle with a vertex of P, you have to be more specific. So you have to use either the 3-letter way or numbering it and then naming it by the number. All right, so quick practice here. If we want to name the vertex, so remember the vertex is that end point. So the name of my vertex is A. Both legs. So remember, these are rays, so there's a specific order you have to name them. So this is going to be ray AB and AC. You have to name it A first, then your other point. Okay, so we want to name the angle in 4 different ways. Okay, I like the easy ways first, so we have angle A. We could say angle 5. We also have angle BAC. Again, that vertex is in the middle. Or angle CAB. All right, the next thing I want to review is measuring an angle. Okay, and I put some instructions down there for you, but I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page because we're actually going to do it there. All right, so when I go to measure an angle, I need to take my protractor, and I want to put the crosshairs there of right at the bottom on the vertex, and then I have to rotate my protractor so that 0 degree line, it's a little bit harder for me, that 0 degree line and the ray line up. Okay, so one of those rays line up. So now I can follow this ray out. Okay, and now I can visualize, I can see that it is an acute angle. So if I follow that out, I'm going to look at the smaller number. So this is going to be approximately 41, 42 degrees. All right, so let's look at the next one then. Let me move my protractor. Oh, I drew on my protractor. Let me erase it. All right, here we go. I'll go back and write that 41, 42 in for you. I did put the degree mark in there, so all you have to do is type the angle measure. All right, so this time I got my protractor lined up. My vertex is going through the crosshairs there. I can see I have an obtuse angle, so that's going to be between 110 and 120, and I'm going to shrink this so I can look at it a little bit better. There we go. So I'd say it's about 122, 123 degrees. So 122 to 123 degrees. All right, so that's measuring angles. A little bit of notation here. If we have 2 congruent angles, that means that we have angles that are the same measure. Okay, and we talked about with segments how to mark them with tick marks. And angles, what we tend to do is we draw an arc and put a tick mark like this. Sometimes what you'll see instead I could also put 2 tick marks or 3 tick marks on it. Sometimes what you'll see instead is that they will draw arcs across it. So they'll just do this. Or they might do 2 arcs or 3 arcs, depending on how many sets of angles that they have are congruent. Again, we have our congruency symbol here. So this says angle G is congruent to angle S, and that's because they have the same measure. All right, so another last term here I want to talk about up here are angle bisectors. So an angle bisector is a line, a ray, or a segment that divides a larger angle into 2 smaller congruent angles. All right, so that means if we have a large angle here, or any angle really, this angle bisector is going to go exactly down the middle. So it takes that large angle and divides it equally. All right, so let's look at this figure. We have figures on the left. And what I want to do is I want to name any congruent angles that we have. And I also want to name the angle bisector, if there is one. Okay, so in this case, we do have 2 congruent angles, right? Because they're both 52 degrees. So I can say that angle SRP is congruent to angle QRP. And I do have to name it with 3 letters because I don't have angle numbers and there's more than one angle at R. Now, did we have this scenario over here where we had a ray, a segment, or a line going down the middle of that angle? Yes, we did. So my angle bisector in this case is ray RP. Again, watch your order there. Okay, next one. On this figure, do I have any congruent angles? No, because I have a 44 and a 43. They are not the same measure. So this one, we don't have anything. If we don't have any congruent angles, we definitely don't have an angle bisector. All right, last one. Do we have any congruent angles? Yeah, they're even marked for us, right? So we have angle NML. Oops, L is congruent to angle JMK. Now, did we have this scenario that I drew out up here where we have one ray, segment, or line that bisected in 2 smaller ones? We didn't. We did not, because there are actually 3 angles there and they don't share that ray. So the angle bisector really creates adjacent angles. So this does not exist. We don't have anything there.